So the title of our talk today is Change Happens. And I'd like to welcome everyone to our first service of the calendar year. Now, I don't know if you're all aware that our calendar year at UUCP begins every July 1st. Right? So this is a time of newness. And for this congregation, there's a lot changing. As of this Sunday, Reverend Paul is now officially retired as our senior minister after 10 wonderful and incredibly challenging years that he's carried this congregation through. And it's a big deal for us. And at least I have to say for me. Yeah. Because of many reasons. I loved and love the relationship I share with Paul. We've been on the phone several times this week, even last night. I love what we share as ministers to this congregation and as personal friends, and in how he's mentored me these last 2 years. He and I have a strong shared connection to Taoism. I don't know if you're all aware of that. And in Taoism, there's the teaching that most of you are familiar with of yin and yang. Well, Paul is the yang to my yin. Isn't that right? You know, he has that more masculine, more a different kind of energy, more educational, more direct, where I have more of a feminine quality, where I'm a little more gentle about my delivery. And I think that he and I have offered each other great balance, and we love that. And I'm grateful for that. But my array of emotions is that I am very happy for him, and yet simultaneously I'm sad that he's leaving. So I'm feeling both joy and grief. And I think many of us might simultaneously have those feelings both for Paul and for this change. But the good news is that Paul is not going away. He has generously offered, and he said, you can't get rid of me. He generously offered to continue teaching his Gnostic text classes. And when his life gets into a groove and time allows, he's agreed to come on occasion as a guest minister. And that is great news for all of us. Paul, I know when you watch this service, you'll hear everyone clapping. So yes, this is a time of change for UUCP, though. And about change, when life is going great for us, we want things to stay that same way forever, right? Let's keep everything the same, and these happy times will continue indefinitely. Unfortunately, that's not the way that life works. Again, whether we actively try to keep things as they are or not, change is going to happen. I don't know if you've experienced this, but I often look in the mirror and I don't recognize myself. It might not be because I colored my hair blonde, but it's other qualities. You know, this isn't just as I'm older, but my whole life. Even as a young girl, I remember looking in the mirror and going, who is that? And I think that's because our body and our lot, we're constantly morphing. We're constantly changing. I mean, there's an essence in us that never changes. The quality of our being inside is us, but the container we're in changes. Heraclitus, thank you. The Greek philosopher was quoted in saying, change is the only constant in life. So if change is unavoidable, what's the point of even talking about it? Well, we are not only affected by change, but we're affected about how we feel about change. Do we embrace it? Do we resist it? Do we fear it? Do we avoid it as much as possible? So how we feel about change often depends on the situation. A healthy attitude towards the idea of change is important if we want our lives to be lived the fullest. We all need to follow our hearts and live our lives according to our values. And if fear of change is hindering us from doing this, it may help us to look at why it's holding us back. So how do we process change? Change can be difficult, like we said. Like I said before, most of us don't really like it, right? Who likes change here? Okay, we have two. We have 2.5, 3, kind of. Now, do you like it when you instigate the change, right?
Good change, but not bad change.
Good change, yes. Bad change,
I just can't live without change. That's not to say like it or dislike it. I just can't live without it.
That's right. None of us can. Thank you, Maureen.
Yes, but we all like certainty.
We do. We like certainty. We do. So most of us don't. Some of us like it. Some of us don't. We have an ever-changing experience of it. If we are initiating change, there are ways we will like it more often. To recognize what is changing is essential. That helps us work through change when we're feeling we're having a difficult time with it. Sometimes there may be a time to grieve, as I mentioned about Paul, and that could be in changes like when relationships end, or the ending of a career, or things of that sort. There are so many aspects to change that can cause significant challenges for us as human beings. Sometimes fear can paralyze us, the fear of change. And I completely get it. Okay. Let me tell you a little about me. I've lived in the same house for 33 years. I've purchased only white cars since 1994, new or used. I have a particular pair of sandals I love. They're made in Israel. They're called Note Karina. I've replaced them at least 3 or 4 times. Most people think I've been wearing the same pair of sandals for 20 plus years. Maybe think I only have one pair. My friends tease me constantly about how I return almost everything I buy. Because I'm never quite sure I will like the change. I'm generally resistant to change. Somewhere in my brain, I feel like I'll be less happy if change occurs. It leaves me with anxiety. And that's the truth. It's something I work on, but we're all working on ourselves all the time, aren't we? So, in the words of the Buddha, change is never painful. Only the resistance to change is painful. How many of you have heard of Plato's allegory of the cave? All right. Okay, we have 2 people. All right. So, an allegory is a story that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning. So I'm going to share with you this story and a perspective meaning to it. So this is how it goes. A group of men are chained together in a cave in ancient times, obviously. And they're chained in a position where they can only see the back of the cave wall. They're in darkness. Behind them, oh yes, they cannot turn their heads also. They can only look in one direction. So behind them is an opening to the cave where light can come in, a little bit of light. And it allows just a hint of shadows to be seen on that wall in front of them. And they are terrified of these shadows. They hear sounds and they see these dark shadows moving. Their experience of life is only through the shadows on the cave. And these terrify them along with the sounds. And, I just I know this is a pretty horrible imagining of a people chained that can't turn their head from the time they were born till old age. Now they're older people. But if you imagine that they're conservative Supreme Court justices, this might not be as difficult to manage.
Whoa.
Visualization.
Whoa.
Sorry. Gotta put a little humor in there. One day, one of the prisoners manages to escape. And as he leaves the cave, he is blinded by daylight from being in darkness all the time. And as he gets outside, his eyes begin to adjust, and he is exposed to the world as it truly is. He becomes aware that the terrifying sounds and shadows were people and horses and wagons that were just passing in front of the cave. And with this, he became more and more aware of the reality that was out there. And as he became a little stronger, he said, I'm going back in the cave to help the other captives. He gets back in, but it is so dark in there. Now he is blinded by the darkness. It's so extreme. And he gets to the captives, kind of stumbles over to them and explains to them what's going on. But they threaten him and chase him away, believing that he is a crazy blind man and he does not know what he's talking about. They were insistent on ignoring that there was not another possibility of change and of freedom. So in hearing this story, in what ways have we been chained in our life to only see one direction? What ways are we limited, or do we limit our potential or possibility of change? I think we all sometimes have something that blocks us from trying to do something different. Several years ago, before I came to be with all of you, I was in the corporate world, and I had been in one specific job for 12 years. And I was terrified of leaving my job to move into a life of ministry. And I could only think about the things that would go wrong. It kept me stuck. I didn't think about what could go right. All the things that could go right. It took years for me to have the courage to take the leap and to create a new life. And because I chose to look in a new direction and let go of the chains of comfort, in a sense, in my life, I did embrace a new life, and I am happier now than I have been in my adult life.
Wow.
As to what I do. Oh, thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you for welcoming me. I think many of us have a love-hate relationship with change. And as I've shared, I certainly do. When things are going poorly for us, we can take solace in the fact that no matter what, things are not going to stay the same. They might get better, they might get worse, but they will be different. It's important to note this will happen whether we proactively try to change our situation or not. One way to develop a more positive outlook on change is through mindfulness. You know, I'm always talking about mindfulness and meditation, but it has great power. In observing what goes on within ourselves in a non-judgmental way, we will notice what we are accepting. We'll also notice and pay attention to the things we do not want to do. We become more aware of what's going on in our minds. It helps us to figure out what we might be apprehensive about as well, even if there's no logical reason, because sometimes fear isn't logical. It could just be a habit. It might not always be due to something very specific. Fear is a tricky thing. With change comes the unknown. and uncertainty can be difficult for us to accept. Change involves risk, and not all of us are natural risk takers. And this fact may add to the challenge of embracing change. But if we use mindfulness when facing challenges, it can help us to develop a better relationship with change. So here are 7 powerful benefits of change. 1, growth. You grow and learn new things every time something changes. 2, flexibility. Frequent changes make you adapt to new situations and environments better. Most of us have heard of neuroplasticity. So as the brain's ability to adapt new neural pathways happens through the experience of change and new experiences. 3rd benefit is improvements. We all have things in our life we'd like to improve: house, job, relationships, health. And through making changes, we can make those things happen. 4, the snowball effect. Sometimes we feel like a small move won't make a difference, right? But sometimes small changes add up and larger occurrences come from it. And 5, progress. Changes trigger progress. If medicine didn't evolve, if humanity didn't evolve these days, it seems like it's going forwards and then 10 steps backwards. But it is progress that comes out of change. And opportunities, number 6. No one knows what might happen, but it's through taking changes into our life that these new opportunities may reveal themselves. And finally, new beginnings. Each change is a new turning page. And it can bring excitement to life. You all remember Superstorm Sandy. Who can't remember Superstorm Sandy? Is there anybody that doesn't remember Superstorm Sandy? All right, good. All right, well, I wish we could all forget it. You don't remember it?
I was in Burma.
But you certainly heard a lot about it when you got back,
Absolutely.
right? It was such a terrible experience for us and many people that we love, if not us directly, or people we just, other human beings that suffered. But at that time, I was attending seminary. It was in 2012. And right after that storm, we had an in-person class. And we were sharing our experiences of what had happened. And one of our classmates, his name is Jet Wilson, was telling a story of what he had observed in the storm. So he was warned, like all of us, to stay away from windows, right? Because the storm could blow it in. But he couldn't help it, like most of us couldn't help it. Went over to the window to see what was going on outside. And what he noticed was that the trees where he lived in the Bronx, that the ones that flexed, this references to flexibility and change, the trees that flexed with the storm, that he called it danced. He said the trees that danced with the storm were the ones that survived. The trees that were rigid, that didn't flex, they snapped or they were completely uprooted. Mm-hmm. And we were very moved by that description. It really landed for us. And one of the people in our class happens to be a person, I don't know if anybody's heard of him. His name is Andrew Lippa. Andrew Lippa is a renowned Broadway composer he is internationally renowned. And he has done the music for many plays on Broadway and much work all over this nation and the world. And he was one of our classmates. And when he heard this, he said, I think I hear a bell going off in my head. I can't understand why everybody in the room doesn't hear the song that's occurring in me from that beautiful story. And Andrew did compose a song entitled Dance with the Storm, which is an extraordinary song, which we're going to close our service with today. Yes, sometimes change is sad, sometimes change is scary, and sometimes it can be exciting, and sometimes it could be all these things. In the words of Socrates, the secret of change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. So as we move towards the close of this sermon, I'd like to consider again I'd like to invite us to consider again about the change that's happening within this new calendar year at UUCP. How will we envision the future of this congregation? Who will we be? What will we do? What will our services be like? Where will we hold them? What will newness be for this congregation? You know, this is the 33rd year that we've been in existence. That is a long time, since 1989. And in the Christian tradition, it was Jesus's 33rd year that he was resurrected, that he died and was resurrected. And one of the definitions of the word resurrection is to come to new life. So let us take this opportunity to see in this year how and what new life will be for us, how we will extend ourselves. And the invitation is let us support each other through this growth, through this new life, this new year. Reach out to Deborah Perez. She's preferring to be addressed as Deborah Perez, Arlene Scala, and your board of trustees. Reach out to me. We are all together in this new change, in this evolution of this wonderful, extraordinary congregation, and our sister brother congregation, Lakeland. It's wonderful to have been developing this deep connection with all of you, and we're so grateful you're here. We're all in this together. You are all an intricate component of this extraordinary congregation. Please know that, and how valuable, how important everything each of you offer impacts this, how important whatever each of you offer impacts this congregation. So let us be the change we wish to see in the world, and let us lovingly support each other through it. May it be so.
If you like this video, please like us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and click on the bell to be notified whenever we post a new video. Thank you.